Alright, hey everybody, Texas Stroker Airlines, this is Performance Shop alone with SkyMopars.com. We are back for the Ram Revival. You probably have a good feel for what's going on here if you've been following along with the build. So, essentially, we've got a hodgepodge of stuff and it's all related to air and fuel delivery. So, starting there in the back, the fancy shiny billet, that's going to be our blue Hypotech fuel rails. They were included with stainless steel brackets and screws. Specs on the screw, should you lose them, should you need them, whatever the case may be, and this would be specific to the Hypotech rails. They're going to be number 8 by 1/2 inch. They are stainless. Since they're Allen head, you're going to need a 3/32 hex key. That's sort of going to be our lime green Wera up there. Coming in, I guess we'll stick with hex keys. That Wera beside it, sort of the light orange color, tangerine dream, whatever you want to call it. It's 3/16. It corresponds with those black bolts right there. They're going to be the ones that go through the throttle body into the adapter. They clock in at 5/16/18 by 2 1/4, and again you'll need a 3/16 hex key for that. We've got a couple of aluminum spacers. I'm on the fence if I'm going to polish those or paint them. Same thing, those brackets, I had always just thought they were steel sitting in the bag, and then I got them out of the bag. They're actually aluminum, so again I'm faced with the same dilemma. It would be difficult to polish them well, especially like those two that have been at 90 degrees. But might paint those, I'm not 100% sure, might have to mock it up and see. The cardboard box there, that's just a throttle body gasket. Sticking with tools though, that Witte Torx driver, that is a T25, that's what we're going to need for the throttle body stuff. Coming in, sticking with the Hughes hardware though, and spacers, that little bread tie, trash bag wrap, whatever you want to call it, there's a total of 16 5/16 lock washers, or flats I should say, and those are, I believe, solely intended for you to like custom space everything. We'll see what we need to do with that. The 4 bolts beside those that do not have a nut on them, those clock in, they're very odd. They're not 3/4 and they're not 1 inch. They're like 7/8. And I buy a lot of bolts. I never in my life have ordered 7/8. It's probably one of those things. It's cheaper to get 1 inch, but hey, I'm sure there's a good reason for them. The ones right behind them with the nuts, those are 5/16/18 by 1 inch. So if you have them hand in hand, you can literally see that 1/8 inch of a difference. So is worth noting. The 2 longer ones, those are going to be 3/8/16. The shorter is 2 3/4. Again, not a common length, but hey, it'll be fine, I'm sure. And then 3.5 inch for the long one that kind of runs into my gloves. Now, something important that I want to note here. This is my factory 5.2 Magnum throttle body. It's intact. It's as I left it. The gasket's even fine and reusable. All the sensors are plugged in. I have all of the hardware for the brackets and everything. This guy in the middle is an eBay pickup. This is an earlier throttle body, but how do I know? Because it says Holly on it. And that's not the case for the later model stuff. It's got the brackets, it's got the sensors, it's even got some connectors because they just lazily cut the wires, which is fine. The main reason that I have this is so, again, if I want that 5.2 Magnum out of the truck to run, I pop the freeze plugs out, which is easy to do with the motor out, and I swap water pumps. That's it. It's fully functional. It's 50,000 mile-ish original engine, and it's probably got a lot more left in the tank. So I don't want to come in here and like harvest everything, or like pull the throttle body, be missing components. That's why I sort of doubled up on things. And that's where this came in. It was honestly just really, really hard to find the stupid fasteners for the throttle body sensors. I have a schematic I made a long time ago where I logged all of them. Let me actually flip through here, see if I can find it real quick. I've got pictures of it. I buy hardware all the time, and for whatever reason, my bolt place, they could not help me. So they said, oh, that's sort of a specialty thing. You're on your own there. I guess in part because it was Torx, I probably could have figured something out, like an Allen head or something, pan head type design. But hey, we're just going to salvage it from the factory piece and go to town. What's important, though, is I don't know the history of this thing at all. I don't want to rob those sensors. I potentially could, especially if I have trouble with my new ones. But again, I don't want to pull my known. I know the full history on these. I know that they're fully functional and fine. If I take them off that throttle body and then I want to go get the 5.2 running, I can't. So, hence all these blue and white Mopar boxes. I'm sort of going to walk you through those. Part number 5602-7872-001. That is your IAT. Now, if you're going back with the kegger intake, the IAT will actually go onto the intake manifold. I'm going to give you a quick look at it there. You can sort of see it. It's the gray one. It's got that fancy looking bottom end. That is one of the, I guess you could call, flaws of the Magnum. It's not like fatal or anything. It's just kind of stupid because it's hot on the intake manifold. You've got combustion going on not far away. And if you would just relocate that to, say, your cold air intake or even your factory air intake tract, you're going to have a way better reading, i.e. it's going to be cooler temps, and you're going to subsequently perform better. So with the Hughes air gap, they have no provision for the IAT to go in the intake. It's going to be a deal you would just plug it in to your cold air intake, or again your factory intake track, which is what you would see on a late model vehicle. So that's fantastic. That's one of the hidden perks of switching to the Hughes air gap from Edelbrock. But coming in next, we have Mopar 050174799AA, and that's going to be this one right here. I hate that the label's upside down for OCD, but this is the throttle position sensor. Now, this one was special and unique in the fact it actually came with the hardware. You'll see all this stuff like closer up later. I think you can, I can see the screws, you probably can't. But it's the only one of these sensors that came with the hardware, which is ridiculous. So many times if people are having to replace these, they're going to screw up either A, the fastener, break it off, B, gall up the threads in the throttle body because it's aluminum. Just throw in the fasteners. You know, you're the manufacturer, you handle all this stuff, do it right, include the fasteners. They do there for some reason on the throttle position sensor. Using my gauge, they drop into the 5mm slot. Again, I'm old school SAE, but they're 30mm long, and you need a T25 head to turn the fastener. The next up is going to be our Mopar 560-29405. That's going to be your MAP sensor. And then lastly, Mopar 530-30657AD. That'll be your IAC, or idle air control. So to kind of walk you through that again, right about here on the kegger, you would have your IAT. No, we're relocating it. It's better in every way, shape, and form. Even if you keep the kegger, that's something that would be advisable to do. It would be interesting. It would be lots of money for a little of nothing, but it would be interesting to see how the car performs. Maybe like chart the dyno, see, you know, back-to-back runs, same weather conditions type of thing. That's another story for another day. But right here at the front of the throttle body, by front of throttle body, I mean we're facing the radiator, right? Firewall back here, radiator up here. So this is going to be your MAP sensor at the front. On the side, this has the connector kind of left on it, so it's sort of misleading, but that's your throttle position sensor. In the back right here, that is our idle air control motor. Of course, right here on this side, you've got your bracket for all your linkages and your connections for your kickdown. So that's what's going on that front. But again, modified Hughes Big Gulp. This is their special blue throttle blade one, which again, I have to make these videos because otherwise no one's ever going to see that thing, and it looks awesome. So I know it's there, some people would know it's there, but it's seeing it that matters. And again, it's going to be covered up, and it's going to be really hard to see because you would like have to climb up on a tire and drape your head and snake in under the hood, and it's just glorious in its state right here. Right here again, earlier Magnum throttle body. It's got the Holley V8. Again, that's a Holley TPS sensor. And then over here, this is my factory 5.2 part number that is etched right here behind the air horn, and the V8 actually matches perfectly with this modified Hughes unit. So, tough thing for me again right now is probably in mock-up I'll determine if I want to polish the brackets or paint them. Paint is much, much easier, and it's also easier to maintain. Polishing, not so much, but we will figure something out. Again, just kind of wanted to have this documented. Also, I guess we should go ahead and cover this. The fuel injectors. Factory fuel injectors would technically run. I think we'd be leaving some stuff on the table and it might create issues. Bottom line, it's worth it to jump up to a better injector. What was spec'd out by Flyin is these They're essentially Bosch injectors, okay? And I like them because they're blue. But I believe, what is factory, like 24 pound an hour, and then these clock in at 39 pound an hour, okay? So, oh, dang it. Alright, well, they look good, I'll give them that, and again, this is essentially Bosch. You can buy these under the Bosch label with the same performance and impedance and all that stuff. But these are plug and play. At least that's what he told me. We'll find out for sure. It looks to be the case. But if you're interested, these are actually Ford parts. And what they come off of is a 2003 Cobra. So if I'm remembering everything correctly, 24 pound an hour versus 39 pound an hour. That's pretty significant jump. All right, 15 pounds an hour. So that said, it should work much better. Again, we're going from the 5.2 to a 408. So we got the stroker motor, we got the bigger cam, we got the better flowing heads, we got the better flowing exhaust, we got everything going on. So it just makes sense to go ahead and take it in stride. Now, this right here, I'm not sure. I may assemble this as a unit and then drop this on to the intake. I'm not 100% sure yet, but there is a cutout. Let me drag you over here. On this side, where this is sort of notched, the bracket, that will go towards the front of the engine. So again, firewall back here, radiator up here. This will be towards the front. It's important that you orient it in this manner, or you will have a vacuum leak. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything here I want to assess on the bench. I may go get myself a drink and supper and then kind of head back out here. But, you know, just making some headway here, trying to keep everything documented. Again, if you're just wanting to throw this stuff together, that's great. But also, if you're acquiring a truck and everything's kind of like stripped down, or, you know, 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 owners, you know, half of them not caring about the vehicle, you could have a whole hodgepodge of stuff. You might have slotted screws, you might have Phillips screws, you might have a broken off Torx fastener on your TPS, that's why it was running rough. All kinds of crazy stuff. That's why I try to go to these links. It's also to document the factory stuff. Because again, once you know that baseline, whether you're modifying or restoring, that is the most useful thing. So just a close-up of my 5.2 Magnum throttle body. Again, MAP sensor up in the front. Throttle position sensor. Interesting, the paperwork actually came with this when it had fasteners and paperwork. It said it was for a 4.7 Jeep. It seemed to made up okay, so we shall see. But the part number was correct. And then back here on the back side, we've got the IAC. So again, we'll clean this guy up. I just kind of have kept him in a box. It took me a long time to actually find it because it's been a while. I knew right where this junker was. And I've done a lot of cleaning on this thing, believe it or not. I'm assuming this must have come out of the Northeast or the Midwest based on how nasty it was. But hey, neglect knows no region. It's just worse where there's salt and snow. Vehicles left out or sitting in a wrecking yard or something. But it's cool in the sense of the people that park this stuff out, since they're lazy. You know, if you needed a connector, you got a connector. You know, if you needed the throttle body bracket, you got that. Why did they not take it off and sell it separately? Probably because they didn't think it was worth the time, or it was just so gunked up they didn't want to mess with it. But hey, I'm not going to argue. We've got that. We can throw in the collection. Never know when we might need it. So, with that said, I'll quit rambling. I'll start throwing some of this stuff together. The most important thing I'm going to do right now, though, is use that Witte driver in the back, and we're going to take off these sensors. So I will have the screws to put the new Mopar sensors on this. Again, you see me using factory parts here. I get it. You can go local parts store, whatever it might be, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Napa, Pep Boys, whatever you have. You can go online and order stuff. You can get sensors way cheaper. Sometimes not way cheaper, but usually cheaper, you know, than the factory stuff. Sometimes, like, I might pay $100 for this Mopar sensor. There might be ones from $28 to $75. 99% of the time with electronic sensors in the automotive aftermarket, you get what you pay for. And that $28 sensor might work great, and then it will just not work. And you'll have problems and fits, and people almost always have the misconception that, well, it can't be the throttle position sensor, I just put a new one on. And again, pull that, go find one from the factory or pay more, and you get a better performing deal. We're getting to a point though, you know, this is an '01 Ram. That's 20 years ago. A lot of these factory parts, you know, I don't know that they're currently in production, you know, so what you've got is what you've got. And then eventually we'll have to, you know, like drop down, and hopefully somebody is making a quality piece we can plug in. But for now, I was able to score all OEM, and I'm content with that. But pro tip there, I know it's tempting. You'd rather have like the really cool throttle body versus, you know, the factory sensors that no one sees or cares about. Those will make your life much better. This will make your life cooler, but if funds are tight, if you're balling on a budget, you're waiting, kind of upgrading in stages, get the sensors, get the good sensors. Either use your known functioning sensors or try to buy the best you can afford at the time. So if you're just going to flip it and you want to be that person that puts the junk sensor on and, you know, the next person figured out, okay. But maybe at least have the decency to tell them, you know, or if they call back angry type of a deal, say, oh, it's probably the sensor. But hey, I'll leave it at that. I'm going to start tearing these things down, get everything swapped over, and I will catch you back in just a little bit. All right, good freaking grief. I'm going to tell you something real quick. This is one of those things it's interesting to me. I think factory engineers would be interested in this type of stuff, the ones that actually care. But it's usually a deal where things progress so much, by the time you understand things, it becomes a moot point, and it's not relevant to what's currently in production, right? But if we look at my factory 5.2 again, facing the front, you'd have the MAP sensor in the front, the IAC in the back. If I had to pick somewhere where I thought moisture would come in or water would come in, I would be thinking more along the cowl, right? The firewall. That seal is notorious, especially on second-gen Rams, for not being there. A lot of people that, you know, get the truck, you know, second, third hand, whatever it might be, don't even know there was ever a seal at the back of the hood along the firewall, right? So I would think, especially if something sits out, you know, the moisture comes in on the hood, comes over here on the cowl, comes down the firewall, and that would be the closest to the IAC. Keep in mind, this is upside down, so it's flipped. The first sensor I started taking off was the MAP sensor. Okay. And good freaking grief. I was using the Witte driver, that's all I had out here at the time, and it wasn't wanting to turn. And I thought, man, you know, this doesn't look that bad. And I guess I should have tried some of the other sensors first, but and again, when I get into this stuff, I really do use the different tools. It's one of my favorite things. It takes way longer and it's sort of stupid, you know, not most time efficient, but again, I'm not on the clock for the man. I'm doing this for my own entertainment and enjoyment, so it's kind of fun. We've got like an evolution of handles here. You got the old Pro Turn, then you've got like the power handle. I don't know that either is in production anymore. You could possibly find some somewhere, and they'd probably be dirt cheap and happy to sell them to you. But those broke free just fine. I actually went in and I thought, okay, man, this is like it. Finally, the Witte broke it free. I wasn't wanting to like tear the tool up or the fastener, because again, these are fasteners that I intended to reuse, which is typically how this goes, right? But, I'm sure the throttle position sensor comes out effortlessly because, again, the new one came with it. That's just how it goes. But I'm going to zoom you in down here, and I think you'll be able to tell pretty quickly. So let me go ahead and pull my friends out. All right, there. Set them down. Check this out, okay? This is absurd. I'm actually going to lift it up for you. So this one's got a little bit of gunk on it, but look at that guy. That's why the Witte was having some trouble. That thing was totally rusted in there. An aluminum body, plastic MAP sensor serving as like your insulator, and this is at the front of the freaking engine. I don't know if maybe somebody like off-roaded this thing, but at the same time, they sprayed the engine down at the car wash all the time. That's really the only way I can think that water, because again, think about it. This is sitting like this on your kegger. This is recessed really, really good, especially by all the factory stuff sitting there. And to have that kind of rust up high, you know, like this isn't like a lower control arm or a leaf spring bushing. This is like the high point of the engine almost. There's not much higher than the MAP sensor, you know, fastener. But it's bizarre to me that that would just be so junked. I think we'll be able to save it, you know, I'll clean it up, wire wheel it, maybe soak it, but that's just insane. And then the one beside it wasn't as bad. But I went ahead, I busted out the little Wera Torx deal. I don't know that I've used those, but maybe once. I have them in the box for some reason, which I think I made a video on them. Maybe I didn't. But I thought, you know what? I need a little more leverage. Let's try that guy out. And it worked great. Broke this one free. But again, I had no idea that just here to here, front of the engine, there'd be that big of a difference in rust. And then, ironically, again, the IAC at the back, I mean, you can just come in and spin. This is my bad thumb. And, I mean, I can spin it by hand a little bit. So, totally fascinating stuff, at least for some of us. And it's one of those like head scratchers, right? But like I said, I do actually try to make a point to utilize, and my hands are filthy, all of the tools and get a good feel for them. I kind of dug the power handle the way it felt out here, but the Vitts, typically when I do anything Torx, that's what I go to. One, they look awesome. Two, they feel great in hands. So the soft finish I have, apparently I got an IP, so no go here. But that's just bizarre to me that this at the front of the engine on the throttle body, that's aluminum with the plastic insulator, would be that junked. And realistically, that looks like the factory MAP sensor too, so I don't think it's ever been out. Crazy. Again, realize not everyone cares about that stuff, but I do. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these out. I'll get them all documented. I can't find, I know somewhere on a notebook or a piece of paper I have a chart that lists all the sizes of these, but I'll go ahead and pull these out. Maybe the earlier ones were different. If possible, and these turn out to be the same length, I could swap them around, and use the new IAC ones there. But hey, I'm going to get back to it, and we will give you the dirty thumbs up there. But again, always super fun. I don't care what it is, if it's a number 2 Phillips screw slotted stuff. If I'm here at the house and I'm not like in a super hurry, I kind of like to mix them up and see what works best for me, what I like, what excels. Hopefully these TPS ones, especially since I have them, won't come out easy. They'll be junked up, and I'll put the Pro Turn handle, or the power handle I should say, on it, and then put the little Wera L key on the other, see what happens. But that's my life in a nutshell, so I'm gonna get back to it here. All right, so one more thing here. This one seems super ridiculously tight. So I was reaching for the Wera L key, and I thought, wait, let's throw a ratchet and socket on it. So the little Wihas, again, biggest knock on these is it's super nice socket adapter, but it doesn't have the torque size, so you kind of have to eyeball it or just run a fastener across your series of them. Check this out though. I decided I'd use the SK because my hands were dirty. I didn't want to get the comfort grips trashed out. Look at this. I just can't do it with the IAC bulk. That diameter there is just too great. So while we're here together, looks like this might work. And it does. So let's go ahead, get this guy cycled over. Beautiful. Again, the perk of a bare metal handle is, again, like when your hands are dirty, if I transfer anything to that, it just wipes off. But broke that free, so we got to use it after all. And, let me awkwardly reach around here, get back to this. Let's see if it, try to keep those in check. Let's see what the best angle for you might be. I'm having a hard time reaching around the tripod and making this happen, but the sucker, I think, is seated about as good as I can. For some reason, it wasn't wanting to catch the fastener. Let's see if we can break it free. Keep in mind, these are the short ones. Oop, got the magic sound we were looking for. Man, that's satisfying. But I want to see. This one wasn't quite as stiff as our top one. Man, I kind of think the fastener's just totally messed up from some previous repair someone must have done through the years. That's digging into my head. Not that, but the throttle position sensor you can't see. So we're going to go back to this guy. The Wera did break it free, but I'm thinking this guy is going to be gunked out too. So no, it looks clean. I don't know what the problem is. Interesting stuff. I was thinking, well, this does sit a little lower. Maybe it'll be trash, and it's coming clean now, so who knows, maybe it's something in the threads back in there. But it was definitely a bit tighter than the other, so it actually, that's mint condition for the way this throttle body looks. So I shall stop and get back to work here. But again, one of the most fun things I can do, at least in my opinion, is just play around with all the different handle styles and tools. And some of them might break free, some of them might not. You could come in and you could be like tearing your tool up, and then you could switch drivers, and boom, it just knocks it out of the park. So it's always interesting to, you know, have real world scenarios, not bench, not lab, not user created, just boom, throttle body off eBay. How does everything come loose? So that's it. I'm going to get back to it, get it dismantled, and we will see how it goes. Alright, so Sunday fun day, tale of 2 days. It was super mild yesterday, like 50s and 60s, no wind today. Not much wind, but we're back in the 80s, so I'm about to crack the door and get some fresh air coming in here. But overnight I got my witch's brew back there, which is mainly WD-40. And soaking up all the screws that we harvested off of our eBay throttle body. Those are the sensors we harvested, something that turns out to be important, and I'm glad that they left the sensors on. It's a little vacuum boot right here, sort of a, I guess we'd call it a 90. It looks to be a little bit more than that, but you know, hey, I'm not sure. I'm betting somewhere I'd have vacuum line, but it's nice to have it preformed. That will pop from right here. This would be the 90 degree, and then we would kick out into the throttle body, which would be right up here on the front side. That's your MAP sensor accessory. So we've got that I guess we will reuse. It doesn't seem to be torn anywhere. I'll shoot some cleaner on it and get it brushed up. But again, right here, this is our MAP sensor, our throttle position sensor, which again came with the gasket, the O-ring, and hardware, which why that comes with hardware and the other two don't. Mind-boggling. But right there we've got our idle air control motor as well. So that's the 3 of them. The plan is to stick them over here on the Hughes Big Gulp, which you can see a little bit better when I bring it in frame. And yeah, I guess I'll clean everything up. I did also play around a little bit. Looks like the top one is the one that I sort of started hitting. You can obviously tell in certain light situations. I was mainly just getting the surface rust off. Backside's done up a little bit better. I might paint these. I'm gonna mock them up and see. Case in point here, this is the one that's been untouched, and this hand spinning around. You can see kind of like the surface staining and everything. And then this one I just hit with some steel wool, and it's pretty easy to tell the difference between them. So kind of have that decision to make. The other big thing I did, which I should have had these in video because they were filthy for some reason. Probably because on the dyno we didn't have antifreeze or just straight water. But yeah, these were gunked up with rust and everything, so I've cleaned those up. These are the drain plugs that'll go on either side of the 408. So I got a little bit more cleaning to do, and then I guess we will start throwing the sensors onto the throttle body. Alright, so messing around here, went ahead and cleaned up all of the old sensors again in the event that these new ones fail. I have 2 fallbacks. I have these eBay ones, and that we salvaged off that throttle body. Then similarly, I have all my factory sensors that I could pull in the event that we need to get the truck up and running. So cleaned up fairly nicely, I must say. Again, little subtle differences over the years. Part number on this early one was down on the bottom. It's currently on the top. TPS sensor, where it used to be a black body, it now has a gray face. As you can see there, this is the Holly one in the hand. IAC motor, part number stamped on the opposite side. You can tell orientation of the plug there to kind of put it in perspective. But got the freeze plug soaking, and I also recalled that I'm an idiot because the Hypotech fuel rails came with really nice stainless brackets, right? That you can kind of see back here. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, oh well, yeah, you know, gotta figure out how to mount those. And it dawned on me, like, oh, those would go to an intake manifold bolt, and I think that means I don't have to use any of those aluminum pre-bent brackets from Hughes, because those were designed and intended for use with your factory fuel rail. So that crisis has been averted. The whole mock it up and see if I want it polished or painted or, you know, raw as issue type of a deal. So I think what I will do is get the gasket onto the throttle body. I also went ahead and I did read the instructions here. The reason for the O-ring and the gasket is to cover multiple makes. If you had a Bosch for an O-ring, you would run that, not the gasket. If you do not have a Bosch for an O-ring, you run the gasket. Clearly mine and the eBay had the gasket. This, if you look inside that bore for the TPS, there is no ridge, no landing for the O-ring. So we're going to go with the gasket. That should be a little bit more simplistic. O-rings sometimes can be tricky to slide in and get to stay in place like you want to, so we'll archive that, keep it on hand for if we ever need it, and we'll get to roll with the gasket. Alright, so sort of awkward to do this stuff with a tripod and everything, but this is a brand new sensors we got, and of course it came TPS with the 30mm Torx bolts. We're going to use them. I've got the gasket in place. It's important to note, and if you happen to salvage yours, or if you have new ones or an eBay bottle, you know, whatever you got, you do kind of have that little bit of play that you've got to kick up. And I've already got the one bolt threaded in a few slots because, again, I kind of wanted to highlight that, but you can just see the little bit of play that I've got right there. And you sort of have to apply just subtle pressure to get your threads to line up. Again, before you torque everything down, make sure that your gasket is fully seated. You can kind of hopefully make out that different gray color before the black, but that's easy. The problem we've got, I came across a very subtle but very critical difference, and might create a standstill or be good reason that we had salvage parts. And what that is with the MAP sensor right here. This goes to the front of the throttle body. If you recall, I showed you the port there, and then that we had the part numbers. Note that there is a black plastic tab that would sort of serve as your washer or insulator. The way this would bolt up, it would come in, it would straddle that port right there, and you can see it rested in place quite nicely, tucked in, relatively slim profile. Problem is the new one. Check it out. We've got some upgraded bosses. We've got that whole tunnel. And while this is in fact a superior design, it's also going to require a much longer fastener. And the question is going to be what's currently on my throttle body from the truck, because if you can envision this little square lug right here, which again mirrors what we have on this one. If I hold these two side by side, this filler material is new, and then there's the reinforcement tab. So this is replicated front to back with a filler tube, and then of course you've got the brass guides there, I guess, right? And they run actually the whole length, which is unfortunate because I was thinking I could just come in and Dremel that out. Still could, but that's an expensive sensor to have to cut up. But subtle little things and design changes. Again, this is why yours truly says when you're paying for an OE sensor, send the freaking fasteners. You're not throwing much more in for the customer. You're saving them a headache, particularly in this case. So we had what, 15 and 12.5mm, you know, which that's going to work great with this one that came off. You know, that's right into the threads. Problem is, if we go back to Exhibit B, the new sensor, drop this in through the guides, it goes great, but do you see the issue? There's no threads. The threads are going to stop way the heck up here. So our saving grace could be that the TPS sensor over here, we just put the new T25 by 30mm in. This right here is 30mm, and we've got like a thread and a half, which probably not going to work. So dang. Let me see. I think I threw mine right here under the bench. And, okay. So, whoa, what's dropping out here? Everything. Forgot I had all my fasteners in here. Need to clean mine up. But this is my throttle body off the 5.2 Magnum. And if you pay note, you're going to see that I have what I guess would be the later design MAP sensor. So that means I can conceivably pull these out, as much as I hate to, and throw it in place. Really, at that point, you just as well run your old MAP sensor, but I guess I'll keep it intact, so I'll be able to at least know the length of screw. And like I said, for whatever reason, I can't find torque stuff locally, at least, you know, kind of in these dimensions. So I guess I'll harvest these and throw them in so I can proceed on with life, and then have to get some more for this one, because again, like I said, the issue here, had I blown up the 5.2, this would be a moot point. I wouldn't care. All it needs is the water pump and freeze plugs, which I'm probably going to do when the truck is up and running, and then I'll have it ready to go as an emergency backup or for another vehicle. And yeah, little things like that. So it is what it is. We'll get this cleaned up and stripped and made functional, so stay tuned. Alright, so moving on to our IAC, we've got it. It will be, again, this is the front where the MAP sensor goes towards the radiator, grill, whatever you want to say it. Back here, towards the distributor and firewall, that is where our IAC motor is going to go. Now note right there, there is a recess. This is sort of what, if for whatever reason the throttle body you've got, maybe it's modified, you know, performance-wise, if it was off of a different vehicle, if it has a landing pad like that for your TPS, you would not use the gasket like I did. You would actually drop the O-ring in. So when we look at the eBay one, we've got the O-ring right there on the body, and when I take you up to my brand new IAC, if we take the red cap off especially, you'll be able to see the black body of the sensor, and then we've got the sort of brown O-ring. So we will pull off our protective cover. That's what this looks like new, and that's what the old Holley-based Magnum throttle body one's looking like after all this time. So we need to come in and we need to get this guy stabbed in, but let me show you. If you pay attention here, you've got the O-ring and it's going to tuck in. I'll have to make sure the sensor, I think it goes that way. I could be wrong though. So again, always pay attention, because there's a very good chance that if you install this opposite, the sensor is not going to reach the plug. Alright, and that would be frustrating, especially this guy because it's in the back. So I'm going to pull mine up, make sure I get that oriented correctly. It uses the 15 millimeter length Torx screws. So right there, again, that's really sad because the Holley one got by with a 12.5 millimeter length, and now we need something like probably 40 millimeters or so to get into the base. So anyway, I'm gonna figure out the orientation on this guy, get him started up. All right, so check this out. I noticed something else as I happened to glance down the early Holley V8 throttle body, Magnum based. In addition to just having that one square tab for your Bosch or your insulator, pay attention to the plug right here. And then the new sensor, pay attention to its plug, totally different, right, in terms of your clip and everything. So, checked mine out. Again, this will give you a better look at it. Number one, most important thing before I forget, we left off with the IAC motor. Note that the plug of the IAC is going to face towards the same side as the throttle position sensor, which is what I thought, but wanted to make sure. The other thing I've done, I want to carefully not drop these guys, because I harvested them from my beloved factory 5.2 Magnum throttle body. But again, dadgum screws coming out everywhere. You can see it matches that design. So what we need to do together real quick is wipe my hands, try to keep my beloved bolt cage in good working order, right? And I think this one was the cleanest, so I'm just going to wipe it down real quick. Alright, let's figure out what we've got. Which again, keep in mind, I'm somebody that does not buy Torx fasteners. So, coming in the metric side, it drops in perfectly in the 5. And if you can see it here, just try to zoom in for you. Oh, there we go. You'll see it's got a little bit of thread on it, but that's because it is a very long screw. 30 millimeters I have up here. This would be the factory TPS and, you know, both areas of the throttle position sensor. So my original guess of about 40 millimeters I think is going to be correct. So let's again replicate this. This is the TPS sensor. Come on. 30 if I square it out properly. So again, throttle position sensor screw 30, and now this guy, it's either going to be 35 or 40. I'm inclined to say 40, and it's 37.5. I'll take credit for that. I'll give myself the win. It's halfway. Again, I'm someone that does not buy Torx fasteners ever. I get a few at work, like when crates come in and stuff, and I think I've shot some in a fence, but I go in and they're T25 by whatever. So I'm not even sure, you know, like if this is a 5 and it should have a T25 head, or you just go by T25 is always going to drop in. I honestly don't know, because again, I don't deal with them. But if you are doing anything, if you're getting the Big Gulp for your early Magnum, you will be in the same boat I was currently in with my Harvest eBay throttle body, whether you have one of those, whether you have your factory one. you're going to have way too short of a screw. So that is the spec there. I'm going to go ahead and get it taken care of. Also of note, while we're here, you'll note on the Big Gulp, we've got both sensors in and installed. The gasket seated nicely. Again, new fasteners here, which is super nice. Right here, these were, I think, the 15 millimeter, because the shortest fasteners were on that MAP sensor at 12.5, but everything I'm torquing on these sensors is 60 inch-pounds. That's, I think, like, what, 7 Newton meters? And that's exactly why I bought this. I had no way of doing inch-pounds. This is a little guy from Capri. It is quarter drive, so keep that in mind. If you've got 3/8 sockets and stuff, you might want to accommodate that or have an adapter that you trust. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my factory 5-point T Magnum throttle body screws so we can put them on the Big Gulp with the new sensor. And I'll attempt to find something to put in place for my own. Alright, so if you hear anything in the background, my apologies. Decided to maximize my time and charge a bunch of stuff, including batteries and work lights. So, coming into the Big Gulp, we've got our brand new MAP sensor. We've got the harvested eBay boot, which heaven knows, I hope that'll fit. And then we've got my, sadly, having to use 37.5 millimeter long T25 headed screws. So what we're gonna do is, I guess, take this guy, and again, this is all sort of coming back to me. It's been a long time, but TPS plugs this way, IAC plug is this way, so you guessed it, MAP plug is this way. All towards the driver's side, passenger side will have the linkage. So that tells me the boot we want to press down here, and then hopefully we can line this up and it won't interfere. Hopefully we don't have to trim anything. So, again, awkward filming with a tripod here, so I'll just flip it. And it's actually probably a way better angle. Should have been using this all along. So we'll set that into place. It sort of bottoms out there. And let's take these suckers. There's a good look at it. Again, orientation, since we're upside down, it's all flipped. But let's see if we can catch any threads. Looks like we got a few. That means this should be, looks like it's sitting a little low. And catching some threads. Beautiful. There we are. Flipping it back around. There we are. Again, sadly, I had to pull these. I just spent a lot of time looking to see if I had any machine screw would plug in so I could keep that factory sensor on my old factory throttle body. No dice there. So procedure here, just since we didn't really showcase the others, I personally like to come in and sort of run these down just hand tight right at the start, and then switch. Never like to crush anything. I always try to displace all my torque. So that one's not actually like tight, hand tight yet even, but we're going to make this one hand tight, and now we'll hand tighten this one. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put about a quarter turn on it. Going to come in and do the same thing here. A little bit more. And I think we're ready for our 60 foot-pounds. Now, 60 inch-pounds, good lord, foot-pounds would be terrible. Let me see if I can find the adapter. It's black, so it's really hard to see. There it is, way up there on the mat. If you tighten these and you're thinking, man, that seems a little excessive, I had the same thoughts, and then when I came in with a 3/8 drive ratchet, that's where this is the only Torx bit I have. It's T25 on a socket, so we're having to reduce it down. Not ideal, nor is having a magnet stick to this guy, but we're going to go ahead and slide this in place. So hopefully you can hear it over the battery charger. We want to just square up here as best we can. And again, it's going to, as you wait for the click, you're thinking, good lord, this is tight. There we are, right at 60 inch-pounds. It's actually a little less than that. The scale on this is weird. I'll show you in a second. There's 60 inch-pounds here. Not ideal, especially filming that, but you're at 55 inch-pounds. Your next stop is 70. I realize you're not really able to see that great. So 55 to 70, and then there's a whole lot of numbers to cover there, right? What I did is, instead of guesstimate where between 4.5 and 6, that's a difference of 1.5 in that span, would have been inexact. I just stopped at 59.5. So hey, should be fine. But if you come back in, I don't care what Torx driver you have, and you attempt to loosen this to see, like, man, did I over tighten that sensitive electronic, it's going to be hellaciously tight. Now that's with a hand driver. If you come in and you take this guy and you put it back on a 3/8 drive, it breaks free effortlessly. So keep that in mind. Again, in my personal opinion, if you want to just get these hand tight, I don't think you're going to hurt anything, and then it's going to be way easier to remove, especially if you contend with rust and the likes. But that is it. This is our Hughes Big Gulp equipped with 3 brand new sensors, 1 pair of brand new screws, 1 pair of eBay salvage screws, and sadly, my personal screw. So again, very important though, your MAP sensor is not going to come with this boot, which again is bizarre. They know that you need that. If you're replacing the MAP sensor, you should replace this, in my opinion. This one seemed to check out. I was able to blow air through it, didn't feel any leaks. So we've got that in place. Next up, I guess we will, I think you can actually see it there. So I've got the door knife out. And we got this guy right here. Main thing, you don't want to offset the gasket. You want to take your time and line it up, because again, every little bit of paper that hangs over your throttle bores, that's going to restrict your flow. Not by much, but just a little bit. And it probably doesn't matter at our current power levels. But if you were building something like top notch, you go in land speed racing, you're going to hit the Texas Mile, do top end stuff, try to set speed. All this little stuff matters, so it's just a good practice to keep it in check there. We're going to take this, carefully drop it down on top of there, and then these holes here is where we're going to run our throttle body screws. So as we drop these in place, we will have those anchored. I'm going to actually spend some time and get the gasket perfect, because I'm weird like that. But that'll kind of create our little setup here. Now keep in mind, MAP sensor towards the front of the throttle body with the Hughes air gap, this little bracket, this cutout, that's also towards the front. If we installed this flipped, where we had that side, it would be bad. So keep that in mind. Always have this towards the front. Easy reference point is your MAP sensor, TPS clock 90. Linkage here, IAC in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and get the gasket perfected, and then we'll come in and probably torque that down together. Alright, so I've got everything kind of hand tight, if you will, and there's one important thing I want to showcase. Number one, as you get this into place, make sure now, before you torque anything, that the throttle bores clear everything. You're going to know if there's an obstruction. You will feel it. Similarly, you want to just, it's good practice, you know, make sure everything's clean, there's no interference, everything looks sweet in this position. The next thing, and this is something Hughes spec'd out, since they come in and they actually just use a traditional tool, you know, to bore this out, and where they bevel everything for airflow. That's why you're using pan heads, by the way. Again, minuscule difference versus like a traditional or the factory hex head fastener. But if you want the best airflow, it actually does make a difference. Again, some applications more so than others, but let's go ahead and get this hex key out of there. I'll try to kind of showcase this for you. So as we pull this unit up, they all three, 1 thumb, 2 index, 3 index, look pretty decent. It's most notable right here. You'll note that you've got the nice bevel, and then you see that little gap before you get to the pan head. They want silicone placed right there. I'm trying to debate, I'm thinking we go ahead and torque it and then apply it, just because if I were to put some there, back out the fastener, apply the silicone, it would be way easier. But then as I torque it, it would just press it out, which could be desirable. I guess it just kind of depends how it goes. But torque specs are 200 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. It is 3/16. Luckily, the old great neck set there, I've got one. Let's make sure it actually fits. Not quite like the German engineering stuff that we've been using, but it's all I've got that's socketed, so we're going to use it. And we want to go basically 50, 50, 50, 50, and then we want to come in and go 100, 100, 100, 100, so on and so forth. Every time you torque all four, go ahead and again make sure you've got full throttle articulation. You could also, if you just go 200, 200, 200, 200, there's a small chance you warp things. Probably won't, but you could, so good practice. 50 at a time, so we'll make stops at 100 and 150, and then our final torque of 200. Similarly, always star pattern, you know, don't just go side to side or square, do opposite corners, if you will. So I'll go ahead and try to figure out when I'm going to do the silicone, and then we will torque everything down. Alright, so this is totally torqued, 200 inch-pounds, did it crisscross, if you will, 50 inch segments like we wanted to. I did say inch-pounds, right? So went ahead, I applied the black silicone ahead of time, and not much really squeezed out, but it looked like I didn't have enough on this chasm back here. The other three weren't that bad at all, but went ahead and applied it. Boom, still crystal clean openings. Depending on the angle, it looks mint going down there. So that kind of takes care of our throttle body. We have it now torqued to the adapter. We've got the panhead bolts installed for increased performance, taking advantage of the Big Gulp's 1007 CFM. Got the MAP, got the TPS, got the IAC. All those sensors are torqued down. What I'm going to do now, since I have this out, I'm going to go ahead and shift over here to the engine stand and get the dipstick installed. Now, if I pop you up right here, which I can do, and you look at the 5.2 Magnum, you will note, if we come towards the front at the water pump, you'll see the tab right there, little black thing. It is basically 90 degrees sort of in line with the water pump outlet. So if I take you over here to the 408, we want to put a little bit of a sealer there on the end, sort of higher up, or maybe even at the top of the bore. But you don't want it clocked like that. That's going to be bad, because if I remember correctly, this goes to the aluminum front accessory bracket. So sort of this position here. Again, you almost want the profile side to line up with the water pump outlet. So that's what I'm going to do, again, just because that's already open and it's brand new and I don't want to waste it. So we'll get the dipstick installed. Alright, using the white backdrop of the duster there, got a real nice bead. I'm going to go stab this sucker in. Alright, so the dipstick is in. I've got it to where I think it should be sealed up pretty decent. I also then went on a hunt for this thing. This will be our gasket that sort of takes our 4-barrel to 2-barrel throttle body adapter to the intake manifold. And I think I might be at a stopping point for this one. I feel like it's a little long. Didn't necessarily do everything I thought we would do in this one, but we spent a lot of time going over the sensors and the hardware. And again, while it's not the most entertaining thing, it's very valuable to people. So what I'm going to be trying to figure out, get the camera strap off of there, is essentially I'm trying to mock up the fuel rails and make sure that I don't need, I'm pretty sure we're going to need these two center bolts out. We might be able to do different things, I'm not sure, but I'm not 100% sure, you know, when I'm going to put the fuel injectors in, which if we want the injectors here or in the rail and then plug in here, kind of thinking we go that route. So yeah, I hate to leave you hanging, but to kind of wrap it up right here, that's what we spent the majority of our time working towards. Everything is beautiful. I'm trying not to move it too much. Let's the silicone fully set and cure. I'll clean this mess up, get everything labeled, bagged, and tagged. We will move on to the injectors and the fuel rails there. I also have a crud ton. I came back over here and I've had these guys sitting in the box for a long time. All different sorts of fittings, and then we've got the hot rod fuel hose. Fits really nice in these little L boxes, I have to say. So again, my apologies, kind of leaving it on a cliffhanger, but just picture that gloriously dropping in place, and you'll get the satisfaction of that as we proceed on here. So might throw those freeze plugs in, the drain plugs I should say, before I forget. But past that, I'll just sort of be mocking things up, trying to figure out the best course of action to get the fuel rails on the intake paired with the throttle body, and we'll have to build a line for the crossover as well. So stay tuned for that. Hope you're enjoying the Ram Revival, learning a little something, maybe helping you out, giving you ideas for your own projects, or if you're just attempting to spruce up your inherited Ram or get it back on the street, maybe this will help you out as well. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up, grab something to drink, and proceed on here in the shop. So thanks for watching. Hope you have a good week. I'll catch you back here for the next installment.